there's been a shift because of social media awareness that now Kenyans travel the world, but they also want to own the world. And the beautiful thing is nowadays, the average Kenyan, let's just say, has heard about Nvidia, Tesla. We have bodabodas on the platform. They have heard of Microsoft, Google, and they understand that these are the companies that are driving the global economy.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Make Money the Podcast, the show where we not only tell you what's happening to your money, but also why it's happening and what could happen, and with the hope of guiding you through your investment journey with conversations from the masters of money. Today, we want to talk about offshore investing. Have you ever wanted to buy Tesla, Meta? Nvidia is the king right now in the offshore market. Did you know also that you can invest that right here back at home using platforms that are available? Today, we wanted to have quite the special conversation around offshore investing, and I'm happy to present my guest for this week, is Radhika, Bhachu. Welcome to the podcast. And first of all, before we get into offshore investing and Nvidia, and you'll get to tell us more about that, perhaps tell us more about yourself.
Great. So thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Radhika Bhachu, and I'm the co-founder of Ndovu. A little bit about myself. I'm a mother, Kenyan, and investor. And I worked and had the opportunity to study abroad and work abroad at BlackRock Asset Management, which is the world's largest investment manager in the world. And I decided to return back home because why wouldn't you? It's a great place to live. And I decided to bring the global markets to our everyday Kenyans because why should we miss out on the returns that everyone else is enjoying?
Yeah, BlackRock, you've had quite the experience, one of the biggest asset management firms in the world. Do you get a lot of questions around how was your time? How was that experience like, if I might ask that question in case you don't get it?
No, I get it quite a lot, actually. And interestingly enough, I think running a fintech in Kenya and Africa is much harder than working at BlackRock. But the beauty about BlackRock is that I was surrounded by the most brilliant minds, the most exciting strategies. And if you pull back all my history and the things that I learned, working at BlackRock, I realized to invest, you should keep your investment strategy simple, especially as a retail investor. And it really set me up for understanding, like, how do you run risk in a company? How do you diversify your clients' portfolios? Just to make sure that if we here at Ndovu are using the strategies and governance in place at BlackRock, we're doing the right thing. So my time there was incredible. I learned a lot, but also being an entrepreneur in Kenya, Africa is difficult. And I definitely can say they're both very challenging roles, but it was great because I learned a lot.
If you were to look at the major approvals within the capital markets for this year, you see a lot of offshore-geared funds, offshore-geared investments. People also take interest. It's the Netflix of this world that you get to use at home. It's the Teslas. I mean, we don't have a lot of them, but that's where the future is heading with driving, it's EV technology. We are seeing quite the interest, both from a fund manager's perspective when you look at the approvals we do get from the CMA, and also when you look at just the interest on the street. When you mention Nvidia, maybe not everyone might get it, but a few people might be, oh, that's the stock performing quite well. So there's quite that interest. When you look at it from both retail investors and also yourselves as fund managers and looking at the approvals, what would you say we are seeing that high interest today?
I think there are a couple of things that happened over time. If you think about it yourself, you are a Kenyan citizen, but you're actually a global consumer. So your laptop, your phone, your clothes, they all come from abroad. And there's been a shift because of social media awareness that now Kenyans travel the world, but they also want to own the world. So they want to invest in companies that are global. And I think even local fund managers here recognize that actually our local investment ecosystem has grown significantly. But in order for us to deliver strong returns and make sure that our investors are actually earning a lot of money, we need to invest globally. As you know, the US market is so deep. And the beautiful thing is nowadays, the average Kenyan, let's just say, has heard about Nvidia, Tesla. We have bodabodas on the platform. They have heard of Microsoft, Google, and they understand that these are the companies that are driving the global economy. So they also want to own the asset rather than just consuming it as a consumer, which I think is really exciting. And I also think that the more and more we become more sophisticated, we obviously have to educate our users, but the more and more sophistication they get, they'll understand the importance in investing locally and globally.
Do you feel that people actually understand that there are opportunities in investing offshore, but sometimes depending on the setup of the vehicle, there are risks? You could basically have your capital gone. Have you taken time to let people know that, hey, yes, we want you to be sophisticated. We want you to have the opportunities to get to the Netflix, Teslas of this world and the likes and the Nvidia. As much as it's risk, you have the pleasure, you have the pain. And somehow you have to manage them through time.
Yeah, 100%. So I think the one thing at Ndovu, what we do really well is we lead with education, because I, as a founder, don't want anyone to invest. Then there's a market crash and then they feel that their life savings have gone. So the way we do that is through really understanding, for example, what are your financial goals? And based off of that, we always promote holding local investments. Holding a money market fund is really important. It's a great way to get a decent amount of return, but being able to protect your money, because with a money market fund, the money doesn't fluctuate. It's a very steady capital preservation type fund. And then from there, we'll say to you, okay, what are your long-term financial goals? And the goal that we say to everybody is that when you invest offshore, it is a long-term investment. You know, I was at BlackRock. I was able to understand active trading, literally trading, buying and selling. For the retail market, that's the wrong thing to do, because how do you have the skill set, the knowledge, all the time from your day-to-day job to really understand how you should be investing and whether Apple's going to go up and down? You just don't know. So instead of that, we really work with you to provide you with a fund. So we say to you, why don't you just hold the technology fund offered by a well-known fund manager in the US? And who cares which company does well, but we know technology will do well. And so to make sure that you are ready and prepared that the market, when it goes up, it will go up, and when it goes down, we make sure that in your portfolio you have a money market fund. You're also holding commodities like gold, copper. So the use of copper is going to increase significantly because of AI and quantum computing. So it's a great commodity to hold. I don't know if you know this, but when the stock market goes down, so companies like Apple, Tesla, Microsoft lose their value, commodities tend to do really well. It's a great diversifier. And then we'll tell you, okay, as a result of that, now that you've got your downside protection done, let's think about the S&P 500, which is a global index that has a top 500 companies that contribute to the global market and can perform really well.
Yeah.
So last year, for example, the global market did really well. And I think the value that we bring at Ndovu is to say, let's create a balanced portfolio so that you're consistently earning steady and stellar returns so that you can achieve your financial goals in the long term. But don't get me wrong, the market goes up and down. So for example, we've been around for a while now, and I remember in 2024 in August, the market sold off. And of course, when you see your portfolio go into red, there's this human feeling that you think, oh my God, I need to sell. And so we had our relationship managers call our customers and to tell them, don't sell. The worst thing you can do is sell because the market is down. Just do nothing. About 75% of them canceled their withdrawals. 5 days later, the market went up. And it was a great learning because our RMs were able to get to them. And then this year, when the Trump-China war tariff thing happened, the markets came down significantly. And for the first time, we saw a lot of our customers actually put more money in. So it was good to show that actually, because we lead with education, we were able to teach and make sure our Kenyan investors understand how the global markets work. And today we impact over 200,000 people on the platform. So that's a really exciting vision to have. And at Ndovu, our goal is that within the next decade, every African will have some sort of capital market exposure, whether they know it directly or not, but that's what we're working towards. And I think investing is a great tool to help you achieve financial success.
You raise a lot of people want to invest, but they don't want to lose any money. So capital preservation, in a sense, then becomes the primary goal when you're investing, especially more so for individuals. Mm-hmm. Is there a risk profile you'd say they are more better suited to global markets where, you know, volatility can strike right as we are doing this recording?
Yeah.
You could live here and something has happened and your portfolio is down 10%. Do you feel there's a profile one needs to have, or at least some mindset one needs to have to be able to navigate this? Because it requires quite a lot of resilience. Like example you gave, not pulling the trigger on the sale and sticking in, and then the market swings back up.
The good thing in Ndovu, when you join, we actually profile you. We'll ask you all the right questions. Like, what would you do in an event that the market sold by you lost 15% of your value? And based off of that, I can say to you, you're a balanced investor. The good thing about Ndovu is that we would take the time to understand who are you as an individual, and everybody's risk tolerance is different. And so, like, I have quite a high risk tolerance. I know what I'm doing. But the idea is that when we create a portfolio for you, we make sure that it's balanced. So that in an event when the market does come down, just because we've taken the time at the beginning to understand, like, what are your financial goals, how much risk can you take, the portfolio is designed to meet your needs. So I think that important part that is led by education, sitting down with you, trying to understand what you're looking to achieve, really helps us manage our clients' anxiety when it comes to the market coming down.
For full disclosure purposes, I think it's good to say that I'm invested in the S&P 500 via an exchange-traded fund.
Yes.
And of course, that gives me the exposure to Nvidia, the Metas of this world, Alphabet, and the likes. But the question I get a lot is when you tell someone, hey, you have some exposure in the S&P, these are the top 500 listed companies in the US, is how did you navigate the tax obligations obligations you have to meet? How do you access the market? How do you even repatriate your profit in a sense? You're investing in a faraway market. Do you feel then this is where you are all coming as a local fund manager, because the person I see on site is someone like yourself, also appear in the industry, vis-a-vis me going into these markets and now start wondering, do I open a bank account in the US to invest? What do I do? How do I pay my taxes? Am I dealing with the IRS in the US? Do you feel then fund managers are then best positions to be our entry point into these foreign markets?
Exactly that. So actually, Ndovu as a fund manager, we make sure we go for a step further. So first of all, we look the funds that we distribute. So let's just take the S&P 500 as an example. We actually make sure it's tax efficient so that you don't need to think about, oh gosh, I've made this much money. Now I need to deal with the IRS, because you don't have the time. And so we take that heavy lifting. Also, moving funds from Kenya to the US can be quite costly. We absorb those costs and we actually do it in a consolidated manner. So we were able to funnel money in. And in the same way, also when you want to take money out. And the beautiful thing is the way we designed this portfolio was that we take out the heavy lifting on operations, tax, moving of money, so that you can just simply earn returns. And I'll take it a step further. Because I worked at BlackRock and before that Deloitte, I actually leveraged several of the governance tools to able to say, as you can imagine, there's probably 300 S&P 500 funds out there. But as a retail investor, how do you know which one to pick? So the value that Ndovu brings is that we go into the universe, look at all the funds, whether it's commodities, technology, AI funds, data center warehousing funds, and say, okay, within this space, out of all of these fund managers in the US, which one would you pick and why? And are they charging the right fees? And are they regulated? And are they doing the right thing? Because the most important thing for us is that we want to ensure our customers' money is safe. And so we go a level beyond that. And what's really exciting to share is that last year, the average return on our platform on the USD portfolio was on average 26%, which is really great. And you're not getting those returns elsewhere. So again, it is really important to choose the right fund manager, because it's their job to make sure that they make it easy for you to invest. You don't have to deal with the taxation issues and struggling to get money out of the global markets.
What we've seen mostly with our local fund managers is a lot of them have stuck more routine investment, your bonds, NSE listed stocks and the likes. If you take a look at the top 10 listed special funds, at least most of them are quite local, which is good. But if we are to talk about the opportunities presented by local players also, not to be left behind, not to see you just as a disruptor, but also see it as an opportunity for themselves to offer this. Because my guess is, especially as we get to the younger people who are more exposed, more on social media, a lot of what we use on our phones is already in the S&P, like you said. You have a Netflix account in there, it's right there. You're using perhaps a Google phone or a Google browser. Correct. So already, the exposure is already there from a use point of view. So it's only a matter of time until the younger people are actually looking more offshore. Do you feel it's a challenge to local fund managers then to offer everything, not limit yourself, not think too local, which is what was usually the problem until disruptors like yourself arrived?
There's a balance, right? So look, as much as Ndovu provides access to global markets, we're very conscious to also cultivate local ecosystem. I'm Kenyan at the end of the day. I want Kenya to thrive. So we also want to be able to play in the local space. So we launched our own money market fund. Recently, I saw a slide earlier, the Kibaba fund got approved by the CMA for us as well. So we're launching our very own special fund. So we can create a fund that not only gives you access to local markets in Kenya, but also Pan-African. So Ndovu is now regulated in Rwanda and Uganda, which is really exciting. But how amazing would it be if our local people can invest in companies cross-border with ease, not having to worry about tax, movement of funds, and we're using that money to build our infrastructure in Africa. Even for us, so I know I've gone a bit side topic, but even for us, it's really important to build our local ecosystem. And I couldn't agree 100% with you that local fund managers will have to also start looking at global investments. How do they think about investing? How do they meet the customer where they are and build really tailored portfolios? Because traditionally, our asset management industry is not that old. It's about 25 years old. As Kenya done really well in terms of asset management and creating capital markets and growing. But yes, there will be disruption. But the idea is that I truly believe in Africa, you have to partner. You can't build everything on its own. It's not the same. Every market is different. The culture in every country is different. I actually think that local institutions who have the trust and the customer base should partner with disruptors like us to actually take it to another level. And we're really open to partnership, to be honest, because I do believe in Africa, you can't build it on your own. You have to do it together.
Where does local investing sit in this conversation as we talk about offshore. And I think the thing you want to do as a fund manager and more so also as a Kenyan is to avoid the situation where you have everyone offshore and then nobody's taking opportunities. And here I'd like to throw in an example. There's, one big guy I know in private equity, and, they'll tell you about the investment in Tesla, what's happening to Nvidia and so on. But they know nothing about the Nairobi Securities Exchange. They might know a few things here and there about bonds and whatnot. How do we ensure that even as we talk about offshore investing, we are also not losing local investing opportunities? Because like you can tell, the market has done quite well here in Kenya.
Yes,
the past 2 years, we are up 30% back-to-back year to date for 2025, and of course was around 34% last year for our NSE.
Yeah.
How do we ensure then the conversations we're having about offshore
Are
sort
also
of bring,
local.
If you think of it as a CISO, you're very, very well balanced.
As a disruptor, as a fund manager, it is my responsibility to make sure we are evening the playing field, because I agree with you, we need to make sure we are also cultivating the local ecosystem. So within our special fund, we will also have access to the NSE stock exchange and other stock exchanges in Africa. And I think that's a great way. So Ndovu actually just isn't in Kenya. We have customers from all around the world, diasporas who want to settle back home. So we're also bringing money from the US and having it invested in local funds. And I think the key here is to make sure that there's a balance. And I couldn't agree more. So eventually we look to add the NSE stocks on our platform as well, so that when we create that balanced portfolio I mentioned earlier, it is important for us to also have some individual shareholdings in the NSE stocks as well. And then lastly, I always say this to all my clients, is that we're Kenyans, we live and spend in Kenya shillings, but we buy things in US dollar because of import and export relationship. But as a Kenyan, you should always hold 50% of your wealth in Kenya shillings and 50% of your wealth in USD. And the reason being is that you can never call currency trades. I worked at BlackRock for the longest time. Our best portfolio managers got it wrong. So instead of playing the currency game, let us take a balanced view, which means that you're also investing locally in the local market, creating jobs, building infrastructure, etc. But you're also protecting yourself for when the Kenya shilling weakens against the dollar. So I think there's a nice fine balance, but it's ecosystem players to make sure that we balance out cultivating local and making sure we're not sending too much money out.
Where do you see foreign investment 10 years from today? Will that foreign play help us bring more people to the market? Because if you look at the people investing in Nairobi Securities Exchange, those individual accounts are only slightly over 1 million. Can foreign also be a way to increase our participation in capital markets? Because again, these are global play. At the end of the day, we are not isolated as just Kenyans and hide away.
So my view is that with technology, and there's a cool concept called digital assets tokenization. We're working on something very exciting with tokenization. We want to be able to bring Kenya products to the global market. So now we're getting an influx of global international people investing in Kenya through tokenization, which is simply saying we would convert a traditional asset like a money market fund into a digital token that can be distributed globally. And I think that's where I see this market going in 10 years' time. Our vision in 10 years' time is that every African will have exposure to capital markets. We've impacted 200,000 lives today, but how do we make sure that we are able to get the reverse as well? Somebody sitting in Guatemala, in South America, can actually invest in an asset in Kenya because the returns are really good. If you look at our cash funds and money market funds, you're not earning 13% in another country. Yes, we have currency exposure risk, but you're not getting those type of returns. So how do we bring the best of Kenya and Africa to the global market? It's through technology and tokenization and working with the right partners, getting regulated. And it's a lot of work, and I'm currently working with some really key ecosystem members to help us deliver this, because it would be great to be able to offer Kenyan investments to global markets with ease. So technology will be an enabler, and ecosystem players like myself and others will contribute to be able to making anyone sitting anywhere invest in Africa in 10 years' time.
Great. And that brings us to the end of the conversation. Hope you liked the conversation.
I did. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. My advice to everybody is that investing is important. You should have some allocation in your portfolio when it comes to investing. Us Kenyans love to buy land. Great investment, but very illiquid. It depends where you buy it. But do try to make sure you include capital markets in your investments, because it's the easier way to make sure you can achieve financial freedom. Thank you for having me.
And that is Ms. Radhika Bhachu, co-founder and CEO for Ndovu Wealth Management. My name is Kefa Muirore. That has been another episode of Make Money, the podcast. And as always, as you wait for the next episode, remember, make your money work for you. Goodbye.